Hello, beloved soul. I'm grateful you're here. There are passages in your journey that don't resemble victory on the surface, yet in the invisible world they resound like a spiritual tremor. And you've already lived through one of these sacred disruptions. You weren't prepared for it. You couldn't interpret it when it unfolded. But it released a vibration through the higher realms, a pulse so strong it cracked open something that had been sealed for lifetimes. Not because you shouted, not because you tried to prove a point, but because you made a choice no one anticipated, not even the unseen witnesses assigned to your path. You reached for what no one in your lineage had ever dared to reach for. You answered pain in a way that refused the old script. You stepped away from what your history still called familiarity. And that, dear heart, shifted the entire design. You see, many imagine that spiritual chains break only in moments of great spectacle. But the truth is subtler. The divine does not always respond to volume. The divine responds to alignment. And something you did, quietly, bravely, perhaps with trembling breath, matched truth so precisely that it dismantled spiritual entanglements that were never yours to inherit. Let me speak directly to you. You were never meant to dwell inside that emotional weight, that guilt, that inner shame, that silent self-punishment in your mind. That was not correction. It was an ancient distortion, disguised as wisdom. And when you stopped consenting to it, even silently, it was as if the spiritual contract dissolved instantly. You didn't simply heal a wound. You disabled a force that had hovered over your lineage for generations. And even though something inside you sensed the shift, it must be fully claimed within before the world around you mirrors it. Here's the truth few ever explain to you. There are spiritual rhythms that repeat for ages. Even heaven allows them to continue until someone interrupts them with purity. Not performance, not flawless effort, but sincere purity. And that's exactly what emerged from you. You made a decision, or maybe just a breath-long moment, where you chose love instead of ego, quiet instead of retaliation, boundaries instead of pleading, and most eyes may have missed it, but not the divine. The higher realms noticed your hesitation before lashing back. The higher realms felt your prayer at the very moment pride could have taken over. The higher realms watched you walk away without demanding to triumph. And that was the act that caused heaven to realign the structure in your favor. Because sometimes the timeline must reset, due to one choice that refuses to follow the inherited script, and the one who honors inner truth more than outward. Joe decided to anchor your next chapter in that alignment. Yes, that single instant, that deep soul choice reshaped what was appointed, because your action transmitted a clear signal through the spirit. You were done merely surviving. You were stepping into spiritual authority. Not only freedom for your own story, but the sort of freedom that becomes a pathway for others. You assumed you were only trying to endure a storm, but you were rewriting the atmosphere for every life coming after yours. This is the kind of divine redirection that doesn't simply offer comfort, but elevates your access. And let me tell you something astonishing. There were structures in motion, not punishments, but sacred cycles, spiritual laws, and echoes of old patterns that continue until someone rises and chooses differently. And that's precisely what you did. When the heavens witnessed that shift, the divine said, "Make room. Release the blessing ahead of time. A new guardian has awakened in this bloodline. This isn't favoritism. It's divine confidence. You weren't chosen because you were superior. You were chosen because you were present. Because you were conscious enough not to numb yourself. Because you didn't use your wounds as justification to wound others. Because you remained open when shutting down would have been simpler. You stood your ground with no applause, and heaven kept record when no one else bothered to see. So now the mechanisms that once stalled you are collapsing. The patterns that once dragged you backward are searching for another place to settle. Because you are no longer available for repetition. You are no longer beneath it. You have risen above it. And the very moment you refused to replay it, something ancient shifted out of place. Let that truth settle inside you. The burdens your parents apologized for but never managed to end. The pain your grandparents disguised as normal living. The quiet repetitions you could sense before you had words for them. All of them lingered, waiting for a single soul to declare, "It stops now." And you spoke it not with your voice, but with your choices, with your calm restraint, with your refusal to become the echo of what wounded you. You stepped away from an old inheritance and stepped into a promise that had been waiting for someone willing to walk differently. And now you find yourself in a season that feels unlike anything familiar. Not because you are lost, but because you are moving through landscapes no one in your lineage could teach you to recognize. You are treading ground that those before you only envisioned from afar. And the remarkable part is how quiet it feels. Not theatrical, not overwhelming, just deeply, beautifully still, as if you are finally inhaling air that was always meant for you. This is the sensation of dismantling a spiritual structure, and within that mystery lies a delicate truth. You may still feel exhausted. You may still wonder, was that moment truly significant? But something within your atmosphere already understands, because the world around you is responding before you fully do. People who once stirred conflict in you now seem far away, not only in distance, but spiritually. As if whatever held you tied to them lost its power without. You're noticing until they tried to pull you back and nothing in you moved. You once spiraled. Now you breathe. You once over-explained. Now your quiet carries more clarity than your arguments ever did. You once prepared for battle. Now you leave before the war even begins. That isn't numbness. That is mastery. A mastery formed in silence, not in celebration. And it is the type of transformation that doesn't require recognition to be real. Let me show you the image. Picture a corridor within your soul, its walls lined with doors. Each door marked by a pattern passed to you, imposed on you, or unconsciously absorbed. One door etched with doubt, another with emotional debt, another whispering never enough. And for years, you walked this hallway, believing these were the only spaces available to you. But because of that one hidden act of alignment, those doors have begun to fade. And far ahead, a new door waits with your name carved into it. Not merely labeled new season or answered hope, but marked first of its kind because that is who you have become. The first in your entire line to choose differently. The first to feel pain and refuse to hand it to the next. The first to move through the fire without losing the softness of your spirit. The first to stop returning to familiar chaos, and the first to say yes to a peace no one modeled for you. This path is more demanding. There is no handbook to follow. There is no crowd behind you shouting encouragement. But heaven is roaring in celebration. And now what arrives in your life isn't coming as payment, but as acknowledgement. The divine witnessed you refuse retaliation when betrayal pressed in. The divine saw the self-control no one else valued. The divine watched you choose emotional maturity when destruction would have been easier. The divine recognized that you acted from your true identity, not from your history. And heaven declared, that is enough. Change the pattern. Release the new design. And here is what begins next. Not merely favor, not merely relief. Because you didn't just break a cycle, you constructed something sacred in the unseen. Every moment you protected your peace. Every time you resisted chasing validation. Every act of love given without expectation. All of it became architecture. Heaven began shaping something from your quiet yes, a landscape, a pathway, a spiritual blueprint that others will walk without the burdens you carried. Your life is now resonating in realms beyond your sight, not as noise, but as permission. You have become the reason someone else will one day choose differently. You have become the reason someone else will one day choose differently. You have become the evidence that another path is possible. You have become the demonstration that love is capable of interrupting an ancient pattern. And now the transformation is entering the tangible world. Opportunities will appear unexpectedly, though none of them are random. Certain doors will open simply because your name carries a higher spiritual authority than before. The favor that once felt withheld is now rushing toward you, as if it has been waiting for you to rise into this version of yourself. and what once repeated like a loop has shifted into your history. So if life feels quieter, if everything appears unfamiliar, if your old reactions feel faint and your new peace feels foreign, do not doubt the shift. You are not confused. You are reborn. The old pull has released you. The new way is unfolding beneath your feet. And this journey has never been only about your own healing. You broke a pattern for generations behind you. You became the reason the divine made an exception, because in a single moment where everything could have reverted, you advanced, quietly, deliberately, powerfully, and heaven answered. Build the future on that. Thank you for walking this path with me. If something in this message awakens something in you, share it with someone whose spirit may need the reminder and stay connected as your journey continues. Follow the guidance of your heart and choose the next message before you, the one your soul is drawn to. I'll meet you there.